Welcome back to Serving Up. Today's guest is someone who's seen racket sport from every angle, from competing professionally, coaching the next generation, and now leading one of the fastest growing formats in the UK. Mike Harris is an 8-time UK Racketball Champion, a former professional squash player, and he's also the driving force behind UK Racketball. Beyond the titles, what makes this conversation really interesting is the journey from his junior squash to realities to life on tour and to building something bigger than just sport. This episode, we get into what it actually takes to go pro and why so many players struggle to sustain it, the lessons learned from elite coaching and one of the game's greatest players, the growth of racquetball and why it might be one of the important tools to getting people into your club, and the role the community plays in keeping racket sports alive and thriving. It's an exceptionally honest and insightful conversation about performance transition and the future of the game. Before we get into it, as always, a big thank you to our two sponsors, ACC Leisure, helping secure the future of leisure across the UK. Any flooring needs, whether that's in your sports hall for badminton or on your squash court, reach out to the team and they'll be there to help you. And to Oliver UK, racket pioneers since 1938. Okay, let's get into it. This is Serving Up with Mike Harris. Good afternoon, UK.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Shaun. Yourself?
Yes, not too bad, not too bad. I mean, well, the rain seems to have finally stopped. It's glorious sunshine here, so you can't complain about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Same down south as well. Lucky down here.
Lucky down here. Well, I say thanks for making the time. I mean, for people who don't know who you are, do you want to sort of explain who you are in just a quick 30 seconds before we get into everything?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I am a squash coach, professional squash coach, and I also run UK Racketball. I used to play professional squash for a number of years. Moved once I got old and gradually worse, moved into the coaching side more and more, and then sort of found a bit of a transition into the racquetball side as well. And that's been my big sort of driver going forwards, really, as the sport develops.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely. I mean, you're obviously running UK Racketball, but obviously you've won it a load of times as well, and we'll get into that. What's your sort of earliest memory of picking up a racket, though?
Squash racket, I'm assuming.
Any racket.
Any racket. No, I was lucky. So both of my parents played at a decent level. My mum played county for Devon. So as when I was sort of a 4 or 5 year old, I was sort of already crashing around on court with them at the club, local school, and then kind of luckily sort of transitioned from there, went sort of into playing junior county stuff from 9-10 years old, and kind of never looked back really. Kind of got the bug very early on.
Obviously you went pro, but when did you sort of realize that you were good at this and that could be an option?
I think to be honest, so I played a lot of sport when I was young, as all kids do, and I played a lot of tennis as well. And kind of my squash coach at the time, when I was about 11 years old, kind of like, well, you're kind of hitting the ball sometimes like a squash player, sometimes like a tennis player, and it's kind of getting to the stage where you're getting very good at squash, and you kind of need to start making a choice between the two. So I think it was about 11 years old when I sort of started playing more national tournaments and stuff, that I thought, you know what, let's kind of give this a go. And luckily I kind of stayed top of the age groups, in the sort of top couple in the age groups throughout my junior career, and that gave me the sort of confidence to give it a go afterwards.
Do you have any favorite junior memories or any favorite wins, comebacks, or lessons that you learned along the way?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think just to be honest, just being part of the community as a junior, I always say to my son now and stuff, and other juniors that I coach, one of my best memories was actually the playing community that we have. As when you come through, you meet so many friends, and I see it now as a coach when I'm sort of coaching on England squads and stuff. It's such a great group of friends that all of these kids have when they're going, and it's not just your stuff at home. So I always really enjoyed the social side of it. The squash, yeah, I mean, it kind of all blurs into one a little bit. I can give you some good losses that I had, I can tell you that. But
must have been a loss you learned a lot from, though.
Yeah, definitely. One of certainly that was one that and he'll probably, if he does hear about this, a chap called Neil Cordell, who used to be a very good junior back in the day. And when we were playing to English to 9, had 2-0, 8-2 match ball against him on his home court up at Ponty. I managed to still bottle it. And that certainly taught me to never play Neil again. But no, I certainly learned a lot as a junior. And yeah, sort of just loved the experience, really.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing with British scoring. It was very different animal to come back and to finish off, because for people listening who don't know, you can only win on your serve.
Yeah,
so if when you got 8-2 and then you lose the point and it's 2-8 and you win, it doesn't matter. You've still then got to you've got to win. You've got to win 2 in a row to get up your first point, and then obviously from there. And I think a lot of people, like you can see, I remember when I first moved from South Wales to North Wales, I was looking at the scores. That I remember seeing a match and it was 9 love, 9 love, love 9, love 9, 1-9.
Yeah.
You're just looking at it again. If you just looked at the scores, it was just like, what on earth happened there? And it was just, they were like, oh no, it was really, really close. It's like, don't look close.
Yeah, exactly, and that's it. Like, so there's the Jesters Amateur Championships that still takes place at the RAC club, and they still play English to 9 in that. And a few friends of mine play it, and they say it's just brutal sometimes because your concentration level, you've got to be like on it all the way through. You can't just get cheap points here and there by reeling off a couple. Like you've got to really grind it out, and you kind of forget. Like now that we're American to 11, you have a bit more flexibility, don't you? In these games. So yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah, I mean it's obviously more crucial now with it being America. Obviously, if you lose 2 or 3, then you lose 2 or 3, rather than just I've only lost my serve, it's still love all.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine. Like obviously, the last 2 weeks we've had Macon v Zachariah, and they've been 110 minutes and 2 hours.
Yeah.
Imagine if that was British. I mean, they'd probably break 4 hours.
Yeah, I know. It's just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Or you think of that Cole making first game that was 45 minutes and was 19-17.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably 4-3 in British.
I know. Just spun
yeah, well, think from 10-all to that last point. I mean, they played 9-7, played 16 points for Cole to win.
Yeah.
But in British, they'd only gotten like 1 or 2.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's absolutely mad, isn't it? Absolutely mad. Yeah.
But but there we go. But then transitioning as a pro, what was the most difficult part for you going pro?
I think because I was very lucky. So when I was in my A levels, I went to Millfield School in Somerset, and I was incredibly lucky to have Jonah Barrington there as the head coach alongside Ian Thomas. And Jonah was sort of a fantastic role model and a fantastic sort of driver to any player, really. So I was very lucky to have a really good setup there. And then coming out of that, going to being a professional, the sort of the demands of kind of being sort of accountable to everything to yourself. It's all on you to kind of put the time and the effort in and the training, to be switched on with your diet. It's just everything really, to sort of fully to take it all on yourself. I think that was a big kind of like lifestyle shift, mentality shift, and certainly it forces you to grow up quite quickly. Definitely for good cause, but so I think that was definitely something that made a big difference. And then just, I mean, being sort of on the tour, out on your own, having to start off from the bottom, sort of grinding out satellite events and what are now sort of challenger events and stuff like that, and having to do a lot of miles to potentially go in these first round or to get a couple of rubbish draws. You learn a lot about kind of the nitty gritty of the professional life quite quickly.
Obviously, for those that don't know who Jonah was, obviously won multiple big titles, often referred to as one of the best players ever. And he's obviously written a few books, the most famous one being Murder on a Squash Court.
That's it.
And there's plenty of stories of him making people run up and down his garden and all sort of workouts and having them throw up and whatnot. What was sort of the biggest lesson he taught you, and what was sort of the most grueling workout he had for you?
So we there was a couple. Certainly the biggest lesson I think was Jonah set a lot of stall in solo practice, which as a junior you kind of, it's quite hard to get motivated for. You kind of can dip in and out a little bit, but he kind of almost made it sort of a religious part of our weekly training setup at the school, that we all did X amount of solo every week, whether it was kind of a person on each side of doing a bit of solo down one side of stuff, and he would really be on you for it. And if you knew you weren't concentrating, knew you weren't putting sort of your maximum effort in, he'd pull you off and give you a roasting for it. And I just think like that for me is again that lesson of essentially being professional with everything that you do and trying to really maximize your time on a squash court with even just the little bits and pieces that you're looking to work on. I think that really made a difference. It's something that I've, as a coach now, really try and impart to the kids and adults that I coach as well. So hardest session. So obviously everyone knows what ghosting is. So sort of playing a shot without hitting a ball, shadowing movements. We used to do sessions of 25, 30-minute ghosts where you used to turn up for your session and Ian or Jonah would be sat on a chair at the front of the court, little like notepad out and a stopwatch, and it would basically be like, all right, okay, do your warm-up, stuff like that. This is your pattern to kind of move through. 25 minutes, off you go. And they would basically count how many shots you would do within your pattern for 25 minutes. No stop, no rest. And it was brutal, absolutely brutal. And obviously kids being kids, we used to have competitions between each other to see who would do the most shots. And I do remember one time I did end up throwing up into the bin outside the court afterwards. But again, like it is brutal, but it puts you into those kind of areas of physicality that really you don't ever put yourself to when you're normally training. And I think then you come out of that and you think, God, I've just done that. I've actually got all the way through without stopping, without, well, hopefully without losing, dropping off too much or whatever. And regardless of the physical benefit of pushing yourself so hard, the mental benefit of knowing that you can do that was massive. So that for me was brutal, but again, like a great lesson in what you can kind of get through.
Yeah, and if we've already talked about some of these professionals having 20, 30, 40-minute games.
Yeah.
So if you're doing ghosting for 25, 30 minutes, and it's probably more brutal than the rallies with them just being like, back, do this, do this, do this. It probably sets you in great stead for, I don't care if this goes to 19, 17 because I know I can do it.
Yeah, you back yourself, don't you? Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was really great. That was good to kind of go through in hindsight.
in hindsight, yeah. Were you dabbling in much racquetball whilst you were still a pro, or did that more came when you transitioned for coaching?
Yeah, so racquetball was quite an interesting one. So we were very lucky down in Devon and the Southwest that when England squash did put a bit of a push in on racquetball, which was when I was kind of, I think, 17, 18 years old. At the time, they had regional leads kind of working for England squash, covering the game in different areas of the country. And the Southwest Regional League was actually my coach at the time, who was based down in Exeter. So he ended up getting me to do a lot of demos and coaching days and stuff like that with him kind of around the Southwest for racquetball to kind of help the spread of the game. So I actually picked up a racquetball racket pretty early on compared to how the rest of the game spread. And then once I kind of did pick it up, once the sort of the inter-county championships got going and stuff like that across the country, I generally sort of played on and off for Devon over my professional squash career, just kind of picking up a racket again once or twice a year kind of thing. And then once I kind of finished playing professionally, I started playing it more.
Well, obviously playing it very, very well into the highest of standards. As your pro, though, as you were sort of getting to the point where you decided, it's not for me or whatever, what was sort of the toughest period for you, going through that, because it's a big decision to go, because you got to obviously, what was it, 113, 111, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You know, so you got high, but obviously in squash, that's not high enough to make a living. You know, how tough was that period for you?
It was hard. So I was still at the time that I was at my highest ranking, I was still trying to train sort of 4 or 5 hours a day, but then to make ends meet, essentially, I was then coaching 5 hours a day as well. 5, sometimes 6 days a week, and I was going to tournaments, let's say flying out to Canada for a couple of weeks or whatever, knackered, because I've been trying to kind of obviously put the work in as a player, but then knowing that to afford these trips I'd have to coach, I'd then have to kind of grind out the coaching as well. And I got to the stage where I was I had a couple of like tough or annoying losses in tournaments over a sort of a period. I was sort of chatting to my now wife about it. I was just like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep trying to make this effort to get to these tournaments, but then be out there and not actually be able to kind of really maximize being at the tournaments. So I ended up kind of cutting down my international events to just playing in Europe. And then, I mean, luckily we've always had a great scene in the UK for professionals. So I ended up kind of reducing down to just playing in the sort of the United Kingdom for a few years. And then once basically, and I still kind of was really loving playing. And to be honest, I still miss playing massively. I still miss that competitive aspect, again, like the tour, the community of players. But it just got to the stage where essentially I had to kind of face real life a little bit and actually start properly having to make a living with my squash. And unfortunately, kind of the time that I was taking to play tournaments and train for tournaments, I was losing money from obviously not being able to coach, and had to kind of make that decision, really, which I'm sure hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of professionals have to do all the time. So it's really tough, because you do kind of feel like you've kind of lost a little part of yourself from like that 11-12-year-old kid that always wanted to play professionally. But I don't regret it. I had a great time playing my tournaments. Wish I'd been a better player then and understood the game then that I maybe am now, but everyone says that. So,
yes. Yeah. So before we get into the coaching, is there anything you would have told your younger self, either right at the start of your squash journey or right at the start of your professional journey, that you wish you'd have known, that you could go back in time and tell yourself?
Yeah, I think and this is funny, having obviously said what I said about my time at Millfield and stuff, I think I probably could have worked harder physically, and especially looking at like some of the guys these days that are even around what my best ranking was, and a bit higher, a bit lower. I definitely feel like the physicality of the game has gone up anyway, and I think I could have maximized that myself more, and I then probably would have also said to sort of my forehand out, because my forehand was terrible as a professional. And there's a number of coaches that probably say the same as well. So yeah, those would probably be the two things. And just generally, like, kind of, again, what coaching gives you is a much more rounded approach to the game and a much more rounded understanding. And I think now that I am a better coach than I was then, I think kind of some of my coaching input now would be invaluable to younger me. Yeah.
Would you say that now that you've got that experience of especially the viewpoint of the physicality, is that something you try and instill in your pupils at a younger age than you were thinking about it yourself?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly on the England squads that I coach on at the minute, from sort of under 11 through to sort of the under 15s, under 17s, there seems to be definitely a more rounded focus on the physical side of the game. It's not just banging out 5 minutes of court sprints or doing ghosting sets. There's so much more focus now on mobility and like the plyometric side, the explosive speed. I mean, every squad we have set periods where we try and make sure we do some good different physical stuff for the kids to go away with. And I think, like, for me as a coach now, with again all the ages that I work with, I definitely think that there's definitely more of a place now and more of an understanding for it, I think, as well, than there was then. Yeah.
Is there a favorite drill or routine that either is your favorite or is the kids' favorite?
I mean, I will always swear by ghosting and the various varieties of ghosting that you can kind of do to improve your game. There's I really, in terms of kind of the agility and the direction changing side, there's some fun games that I do with the kids where kind of get them mirroring each other's movements. So one person has to sort of whether you're picking up balls off cones or touching rackets or whatever, one person has to choose which direction to move, the other person has to mirror them, and they can sort of shift direction and stuff, just to try and kind of get kids to understand like having to make those changes and those adjustments as you move, not just running in straight lines all the time. And that's fun because they can make it competitive, take the mickey out of each other, stuff like that. All the things that kids like doing.
Do you think it's those type of things that separate good coaches from great ones? Because, you know, you'll see a few coaches that are literally just get on, maybe a quick run around the court to warm up, a little bit of sidestepping, and then it's just feeding and hitting, and then that's kind of it. But do you think the adding in the variations and, you know, we're now going to focus on, we're going to spend a 4-week block focusing on backhand, we're going to spend a 4-week block focusing on agility. Do you think that makes the biggest difference between just a good coach and a great coach?
Yeah, it's tricky because everyone's got different styles and different approaches to the game as well. Some coaches might be the sort of the more sort of traditional kind of style of straight line hitting and sort of like, let's say the sort of the Malcolm Woolstrop kind of and that is not a criticism by any means, because I mean, God, look at the players he's made. But and then some might be more open court kind of more flowing creative kind of style coaches. So I think there's kind of definitely no one size fits all thing. But I think, yeah, definitely for a coach to be flexible and to depending on their pupil, their player that they're working with, depending on what kind of makes them tick, really, finding the different ways to maybe tackle the same issue but with different personalities and stuff. I think that's really important as a coach. And something I try and do as much as I can. There's always going to be some that kind of throw up some curveballs for you, and you've got to kind of go away and bash your head against the wall a little bit, and then come back with new ideas. But yeah,
has there ever been anybody where you've just been too much of that water and oil, and you've had to go, look, I don't think I can get you to that next level. You might want to think of going to X, Y, or Z?
There's been some that have been tough. It's actually more to do, I think, with you can kind of tell as a coach whether someone wants to learn and wants to go and improve, or whether they're just kind of almost going through the motions of having a few sessions to say they've had a few sessions. And I think like there's been some that you've just gone, look, I kind of know that you're not going away and actually really thinking about this or putting it into practice. So this is why we're going round and round in circles on the same thing. And it is not, I mean, I certainly, like some people, I would say we might actually benefit with going to see, let's say, a left-hander going to see a left-handed coach or something like that, because obviously there are limitations to how ambidextrous I can be. And again, like different perspectives. But for me, it would be more, you really need to actually go and try and solo this a little bit if you really want this to kind of kick in, or you need to go and do your ghosting or whatever. And you can tell the people that do or don't, and that makes a big difference, I think, as a coach, knowing whether they actually do care enough to go away and try and put something into practice, or whether they're just gonna, as I say, go through the motions of rocking up every week and then wandering home again.
Is there a sort of like a mistake you regularly see club players making that drives you insane as part of that?
Yeah, I think, and I'm probably sure a lot of coaches agree, when they're hitting to the back, whether it be from the front or the back, hitting the ball too low. So many club players to sort of a pretty decent level will try and hit too hard rather than using the height of the front wall. And so many times I get people coming in and going, oh, I'm just really struggling with my length, or hitting my length too loose. And you hit, like, do your warm up, and they're trying to melt it about that high above the tin. You think, this is probably going to be quite an easy one for me to sort. So yeah, that's definitely the first thing. Just try and hit too hard, too low, rather than using the full front ball.
Yeah, and well, even when they're still blasting it hard, they seem to forget there's a back wall.
Yeah,
That if you hit it, it's going to come flying
yeah,
off.
that's it. Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah, I always find trying to get it. It's usually the boys, I find, especially when they get to that, start getting that testosterone in their body, and they're trying to blast, and you're just like, you've hit the back wall. By the time I'm hitting it, I'm in the middle. It's like,
yeah, or it's the classic, like, yeah, I can hit this ball hard, and just trying to throw your body through it, and it's come straight back into your forehead because you spun yourself around 360 degrees.
Yeah, so we literally did a session last night where we did we were giving people bonus points for doing lifts, and the people who weren't doing it were losing to people they'd never lost to.
Yeah,
because obviously they were lifting and they were like, "Oh, I'd never thought of doing that." I was like, "Well, you'd never thought of, rather than running around like a headless chicken, just giving yourself just a little bit extra time."
Yeah,
and obviously because they were trying to smash it, they were just smashing it into the tin or smashing it out, and it's definitely something not everybody sees. And then in terms of, because you've coached all the way from juniors to world ranked players, is there a time where you can see something and you go, shit, they've like got it?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, actually. I think, like, for me, generally, like, as a good junior, by the time you're kind of getting to under 15s, under 17s, I mean, you would hope that your basics are pretty solid, really, especially to be kind of in that England category or whatever. I think for me, it's just that little bit. I was always quite an attacking player when I was a junior. I cross-cut nicks, tried to do it way too much, but that's another story. But I think for me, that like little kind of spark of creativity, whether it be sort of a little hold or something, they're good hands or something like that, or just sort of being able to take the ball in from the back with a little bit of like variation or something, just that extra little bit that you go, actually, that was quite clever. Or just that you can see that suddenly something's tweaked and they've kind of, I don't know, used their racket face a bit more than perhaps they would have done before, and just think, actually, okay, something's clicking in here, like we've got something to work with here. I think, like, maybe in the past we've been a bit guilty of producing too many kind of very structured players, and I think now that the way that the game is again developing, and again everyone is so physically strong, you need to have that little bit of extra to kind of create these opportunities, create these attacking chances.
How do you help foster that creativity in a structured coaching environment, though?
So that's definitely tricky. I think, like, you as a, like, let's say if it was a sort of a one-to-one session, I think you like go through patches where you kind of get the player on the tee and give them weird angles to have to deal with, like whether you're maybe, let's say you're in the front forehand of the court or something, start hitting almost at them, so obviously off the front ball, but hitting at them, so then they've got to deal with balls kind of off their face, at their feet, kind of inside out, things like that, different little variations of hitting that actually encourage them to be reactive, to be again, not just kind of like locked in with their swings or anything like that, just something to kind of foster that creative thinking and reactive play in a bit more of a weird kind of situation. Things like cross-court games I always used to love as a kid, where you're encouraged to find different angles and different variations, short games, anything that sort of encourages creativity in their play, really. I think you can have the kids generally, once they kind of get to grips with it, have a lot of fun doing it as well.
We recently read an article on how parents can get the best out of their coaches, because I'm sure you've had it where some parents maybe overstep the mark, or totally the opposite way, where it's literally just they've got a mum and dad, but you
just never see them.
No idea what they look like.
Yeah.
What would you say sort of like the best way, not only that the parent can help their child get the best out of squash, racquetball, whatever it is, but that you and them can, work positively as well?
I think there has to be obviously has to be sort of trust both ways, I think, really. So the parents got to trust the coach to be trying to do the right thing for the child's game. There's quite an interesting I won't mention the player or the age group or anything, but there's quite an interesting situation with the junior at the minute where very good young junior player who's having to make quite a radical change to their technique to essentially continue being very good as they go up the age groups. And there's quite a lot of the parent and the child have to buy into what the coach is saying, because the junior has got to X level, good level, with this technique, which as they get stronger will 100% cause them a lot of issues. So this they've had to buy into what the coach is saying, not me actually, it's a different coach, but to essentially help their child continue developing. And I think like good communication between coach and parent and obviously child, and being able to help the understanding kind of grow in that is absolutely vital. And the positive thing is that they have done. There has been a sort of a buy-in and a trust, and as a result the child is developing really, really well there. So I think that's absolutely vital. And again, kind of like I said earlier, then both the coach being able to then go to the parent and go, well, this is what we've been working on, can you make sure that they get to the club to do sessions, and for then the parent to kind of do the hard bit really and actually make sure the child gets there to keep improving. When I was a junior, my parents were very good at making sure that I was at the club. I was lucky to have courts at my school as well, so I always got court time when I needed court time. And kids are so busy these days with so many different sports and everything else going on. I think if they want to be very good at squash, it's about the parents being able to help them find the time to do it. I think that's where we have our most successful juniors, so the ones that get the most access to courts.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's common sense. It is sort of the more you go on, the better you're going to get, isn't it? Whether it's solo work or with a coach. Transitioning now to racquetball, we've obviously touched on it a little bit. How many times are you the UK Racketball Champion?
So I've won the Nationals 8 times now.
8 times. Is that Tim Vale has the record, is it?
He's got 10, yes.
So you're hunting that down.
I'm hunting there. Age. I'm hoping age doesn't get the better of me, or my the casing pack don't get the better of me. But yeah, I'm doing my best.
How have the last few finals gone?
Last year I got a bit lucky in the sense that the other semi-final, they killed each other. So my opponent in the final was a bit broken. So I won that one 3-0. But I've had some very good finals over the years. Played Guy Pearson the year before, he's another very good racquetballer from Warwickshire. That was about 70 minutes for 3-1 to me. I've had battles with Tim, Luke Bishop, Matt Bedwell from Scotland. So there's been some great matches. Yeah,
there's been some good names in there as well, from like Darryl Selby winning it as well. Obviously, top 10 squash player when he was a pro.
Yeah, Peter Nichols won it as well. Jamie Haycox. Yeah, I mean, we've had some very good squash players playing it, which is great.
Do you think that's helped racquetball, having the people of that stature in squash cross over to it?
I think so, definitely. I mean, so people like Peter and a couple of the others, they've kind of dipped in and out. Daryl's been a long time advocate for it, which has been fantastic. And he's such a great personality anyway. I mean, his squash creativity and flair was amazing. And so having him involved in the scene, he's someone that he's like a go-to name. As soon as you see him in the draw, you think, oh, brilliant. Yes, he's playing. Yeah. Let's kind of see what's happening. So, he's been really great. And we've had some, and we've had more and more coming in over the years. So in the British Open, just gone last year, we had Henrik Mustonen from Finland, who's the Finnish squash #1. He played it, which is fantastic. And the game is really building out there. People like Miles Jenkins, and a lot of other names as well playing in the UK as well. I played George Parker last year in the Inter-Counties, which was fantastic, and hoping he'll be back this year for Leicestershire. So yeah, there's a few of the guys that are starting to come across to it, which is really great. And I think as the sport goes, I'm hoping that some more of my, let's say, my kind of age group contemporaries and some of the other guys that are maybe starting to wind down on their squash, give it a go, because it's a great foil for the sport. I think it's a fun one to give it a go and see what happens in it.
Do you think that's where sort of squash and racquetball can benefit each other then, where, you know, if you're winding down but you don't want to give it up, well, racquetball is a little bit more forgiving, and you know, and then just, you know, if you just want to be able to play with, you know, say your dad or your granddad, even, you know, just being able to make it that much better.
Yeah, that definitely, I definitely think that. And I mean, for example, actually as well, so SJ Perry, who you've had on your chats before, I forgot to mention her. I mean, she's won national titles and British Open titles at racquetball as well, and she's just come back from her surgery relatively recently, and she's been playing a lot of racquetball herself, because it's, for her, it's an easier way back into playing rather than the physicality of squash post surgery. Anyway, but no, I mean, definitely, I think like the racquetball kind of, the whole setup really is a much more relaxed kind of vibe, for want of a better word, than I always felt that this sort of the squash setup was. It's a really welcoming community. It's a lot of fun, and the guys that have kind of come in from squash into playing racquetball and getting involved in our tournaments, I've always really enjoyed it, because I think, well, certainly for me as a squash player, I probably still take my squash, even though I've not played as much as I'd like to, still more seriously than I take my racquetball. It's kind of been ingrained in my mind over the years. Whereas racquetball, I love playing. I love the fact that it is less severe on your body, and you can have a great workout without having to be on crutches for the next 2 days.
Yes, most. Do you think it's a better, you know, if I say adults getting into sport for the first time, you think it's an easier entry point because you don't need as much of a sort of hand-eye coordination as you do for squash, with the ball being bigger and bouncier?
100%. I think when I was at my last club, I ran a lot of sessions for, well, women in particular, but both men and women sessions for just getting into squash and racquetball. And it was always the racquetball sessions that were far more successful at engaging players to keep playing after the kind of the 5-6 week course. There was a lot of conversion into completely brand new players into then going into the racquetball boxes at the club, because of the fact it was far easier to kind of just get used to sort of nudging a racquetball around, and with not much technique to start with. But you get that kind of bite of like, oh, I really enjoyed that workout. I enjoyed hitting that ball against the wall, and the exchanges that you can get from a rally without having to have a bit more of a technique than you might have to with a squash ball.
Do you think that'll help? Because obviously we've seen squash sort of, you know, the numbers go down in squash, but, you know, the racquetball numbers, obviously they're starting at a lower point, but they are growing. Do you see them eventually coexisting and even doing like a joint tournament where you say doing like grades, we got grades A to C, a squash, but then D and E, you're actually going to play racquetball?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea, and I think like I would always kind of like, from my perspective, always try and encourage like joint ventures like that. I guess I think already they do coexist. I'd like to see governing bodies utilize racquetball more. This is something that I've tried to push, both on the sort of the local kind of England, Wales, Scotland front, but also as well at the European Federation front as well. And it is getting there. But I'd like to see racquetball used as a partner to squash, to, like you just said, to get people into squash clubs. And you might find actually if someone, a complete beginner, gets good at racquetball, they might want to try squash, because it is that bit more dynamic. It is that there are those differences to it that is a bit more explosive. So I do think they could really work together, but certainly racquetball can really assist squash in getting just more people into clubs and onto courts.
How would you, because obviously we are calling it racquetball, some people are calling it squash 57, which I'm still not, what's the 57 relating to again?
Okay, so this is a long lot. This I knew this question would come up. So basically, Squash 57 was the name Squash 57 comes from the 57 is the diameter of the racquetball.
Right.
Okay,
easy to remember.
So the idea being you've got squash, which is squash, and then Squash 57. It's like big squash, essentially, for whatever way you want to put it. Now, the issue around that came from the fact that the decision was made by England Squash, I think in partnership with World Squash. Not too clear on that, and not too because this was before my time involved with UK Racketball. To make this name change for the sport without really talking to the playing population about it. It was kind of made essentially behind the scenes, based on what Sport England funding would go into. So from what I understand was England Squash needed to bring racquetball and squash together to show better numbers overall to get better funding from Sport England.
Right, okay.
That makes sense. So going squash and Squash 57 was an easier way to amalgamate that than having these two kind of separate names.
Yeah.
As I said, as I said, this decision was made before my time. I have no input on it, and it was made, as I said, without really any consultation with the community that were pretty annoyed by it, to the point where actually racquetball, Squash 57, what do you call it, actually split from being kind of involved with England Squash at the time. So UK Racketball, under my predecessor Mark Fuller, kind of split away from its partnership with England Squash for a few years because of this. It's since well, I mean, it's kind of remained separate in the sense that UK Racketball now runs the game really, and all the events, the nationals, the intercounties and things like that, as its own separate entity. England Squash don't really have any involvement in it. I would like to kind of try and partner with England Squash more to help the kind of the grassroots level of racquetball be spread more in the club level. So let's see where that goes. But the kind of the Squash 57 thing, sorry, it's a bit long and boring, but has kind of hit the horizon again a little bit more because this year we have our first European Cup for the sport, which is fantastic. That's sanctioned by the European Squash Federation and World Squash. And World Squash also have a Pan Am Games and Asian Games and things like that for Squash 57. So now as the sport is growing and we obviously have our international teams and stuff like that as well, there is kind of a bit more talk about having to kind of unify the game under Squash 57 once more, because there's additional things with American racquetball, which is another sport altogether. Yeah. So you can see where this kind of gets a little bit.
And even things like hardball squash and softball and
yes, there's a lot of fun names out there for the sport. So this is something that kind of is being discussed at the minute, kind of where the name goes, kind of in the next 12-18 months or so. But I do think like it would be useful to have a more unified approach across the board, especially since the US in particular are really through Nick Taylor, who is the kind of national coach, who was a massive advocate for racquetball when he was in Jersey, and he's really pushing it out there. And I think the US program is really kicking off in a big way. It's fantastic. So I think we're looking at where the name goes kind of in the near future.
I take it your preference is racquetball?
Simply because obviously it's UK Racketball. So I think because we've been UK Racketball for say 15-16 years now, I think it's obviously a big change, and the community has been built under UK Racketball. The sport, even to be honest, even if or when I do change the name to Squash 57, it will still be called racquetball in the UK. Or everyone will still refer to it as racquetball because it's one of those ingrained things. But I mean, for the sport to grow, these decisions have to be made at the end of the day. And I think for the greater good of it, it might come the time where I have to kind of bite the bullet on it and try and work it in. But Not quite yet. Get there.
Not quite yet. Not quite yet. So how would you? So once in the future now we've got the name sorted, and it is whatever it is, it'll probably be something like Racketball 57 now. So it's a compromise. What would you say to like our club that is no racquetball whatsoever? How would you sort of take the first steps for clubs to sort of initially ingrain racquetball into the club and then grow it into another branch sort of it?
So I think there's been a club in just outside Cardiff, actually, the Rabina club.
Yes, know Rabina very well.
Yeah. And I know the guys well from over the years, and they're the chap that's kind of really pushing things there, Alex Rowlands.
Yes, Alex Rowland. Yeah, very, very nice man. Yeah,
he's a great guy. And he and a few of the other guys at the club and in the sort of the Welsh scene have latched onto racquetball over the last couple of years, which is great. So he's really keen to grow it there. So he got in touch and kind of said, like, look, we're keen to get some sessions going. Like, is there any help you can give? And I was in a position with UK Racketball to be able to fund them for some rackets and balls out of the sort of the business too, and with some great support from Caracal, who are our lead sponsors, to basically just get some taster sessions going. So they've ran a couple of hour Sunday mornings of kind of rock up and try, balls, rackets provided or whatever. And they had a great turnout. They're having sort of 20, 25 people per session, rock up, men's, ladies, old, young. And as a result, they've got some boxes going off the back of it, which is great. And it's just helped that with obviously Alex and a couple of the other guys being sort of leading members of the club, of their kind of playing community there, them showing kind of how it's done. Although how good Alex is at it, I'll leave that to your imagination. But
he's a decent squash player. I'd like to think he's all right.
And just sort of showing like the top players actually enjoy playing it. It's not that traditional old man, really bouncy sport that everyone has had a sort of a bit of a predisposition to kind of thinking about it in the past. And as a result, it's converted people to just really enjoying it. And the Welsh scene is growing. That's kind of started to spread out to a few more clubs taking it on. We've now got 2 Welsh UK racquetball tournaments in the year because of that. And I know that there's more being pushed in other regions. So it just little things like that. It really doesn't take much. Just a couple of trials at taster mornings, explain the game, show it how it's done, show it that it's basically the same as squash with a different serve, and basically mainly and let people go and have a hack at it. So we need
I think it is important, obviously, like Rabina. I mean, Rabina is one of these sort of top clubs in Wales. They very much at the forefront, like you said. They've reached out to you for racquetball. They've put in the DDA walls, and they've held the first wheelchair squash event. And it does take clubs like Rabina, and like you mentioned Alex and Dave Haley's obviously they're running it. Welsh International. You've got like the chairman Gary Selway open to all ideas. I think it's nice to know the clubs can reach out to you as well and just go, hi, any help, what can you advise, this, that, or the other.
And yeah, absolutely. And I mean, whilst we're not flush with cash, like I'm keen to kind of get these things going. And as I say, Character have been really supportive with helping me out on that side with being able to get these packs of rackets and balls out. And it really doesn't take much to get things rolling. To give you another example, actually, like a few of our UK racquetballers went out to Estonia this year. I know, totally random, right? Just through a contact at their home club, and they went out and went to in Tallinn, I think it is.
The capital. Yeah, beautiful place.
And they went to the national centre there, and what was really nice was a load of our UK racquetball community donated a load of old rackets. We gave a few balls, and they went out. They took all of that stock out, and now they just did a couple of days at kind of getting to know the locals and having a few beers, a few meals, and playing with them, a few like fun tournaments. And as a result, that started to grow out there. So like there's always ways, but it's just about that initial communication, get in touch, and then just sort of see what we can do to help. Really, we've got a great community of players that are keen to help out. It might be local guys that you don't know that play in the series close to your club, for example, that might be, oh yeah, I'll pop in for a day and do some bits and pieces. It doesn't take much.
No, I think that's sort of what you've just said is the crux of this squash racquetball sort of community of sharing. You know, the amount of people I'll see going, oh, when did you get that racket? Oh, this player gave it to me because he said he wasn't playing with it. And you'll ask that player and he bought a new racket so that he could give that racket to a beginner. And, you know, obviously you saying flying over and giving rackets. I think that is just such, you know, in pretty much every club. It's such an ingrained part of the culture to try. You know, we're not like football where it's going to be on national television 4 or 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
But I think that community is second to none of, you know, it's that saying is the world is great when men plant trees, the shade of which they'll never see.
Yeah.
And I think so much of that happens in squash, and you know, you've just said of it happening in racquetball as well. I think that is, you know, for people who haven't tried those two sports, just find your club, and that's the community you will find yourself very quickly a part of.
Yeah, and that's it. And I mean, even if it's kind of your local rugby club that has 2 courts tucked around the back or something like that,
like Newport,
exactly like Newport, yeah. But you go in and if you can kind of get to grips with one of the games, whether it's racquetball or squash, you very quickly find a very open, welcome, like-minded group of people, don't you? And it's very easy to slot in. Yeah.
That's it. I think that's a lovely place to leave it. Before you go, I've got some quick fire questions for you there. So don't think too hard about these.
I'll try not to.
Best player you've played against, squash or racquetball?
Best player I played against. I have to say, actually, Tim Vale. Probably for both, because it's just, I hate the fact that I've said that as well. But
he's going to be loving this. I'm going to WhatsApp him after this one. You're going to have to listen to this straight away.
He's just, for someone, he's just a very clever player. Lovely control of the ball. I mean, the only times that I've played him is when he's been older than being a professional player, if that makes sense. So I've always played him at kind of a master's age category or what have you. He's about, I think, 10 years older than me, and yeah, he's been so hard to play, so hard to be. Clever player, crafty player, yeah, annoyingly so.
Annoyingly so, yes. He will be. Next time I see him, I know he's gonna be bringing that up.
Yeah.
Who is the hardest worker you've ever coached?
Hardest worker. And I have to say, actually, I and this is purely because I've been lucky to coach him, but Mohammed El Shabaghi, just his, I mean, obviously he's one of the greatest players of all time anyway, but just his just attention to detail, his effort with everything is just ridiculous to kind of see. So yeah.
Your favorite shot?
Backhand. Yeah, it's going to be backhand cross-court nick on the return of serve. And I hate myself for saying that.
Awfully specific.
I know.
What would you say is the most underrated skill in squash?
I think to be able to hold the ball well, to be able to put delay on the ball well. I think like that people that do it well make it look very easy. But I think like as a coach and trying desperately as a player to be able to do it, it's hard to do it naturally. And there's only a very few in the game that I've played that have been like absolutely natural, kind of just smooth holders of the ball. So yeah. Anybody
in particular you want to shout out for being good at
that? I'm going to get a chap called Mike Gregory from Devon, who I'm sure quite a few players will know. He's probably done some damage to various players over the years, but he's one of those players who you play him. I mean, he's in his 50s now, and he'll still be playing semi-professional players and make them look an absolute mess the first time they play, because his hold is just horrendous, absolutely horrendous.
A lot of taxis getting called.
Oh God, you have no idea. I broken ankles all over the place.
If there was one rule you could change in squash to, make it better in your opinion, what would it be?
I think it would be that, kind of like rugby, that the referee's decision is final. Like the referee has essentially like more authority, or a greater authority over what goes on in the game. So, I mean, one of the things that rugby works so well with is that the players are absolutely like, there's no argument, like referee's call is final. And I think for our game, regardless of whether we think decisions are right or wrong or how good the referees are, I think certainly now that we're getting into Olympic level, I think that there has to be a clearer line with it.
How would we do that? Because obviously we've got the referee, we've got the video ref, and whatever decision they give is final. I get where you're coming from, because you see a lot of players arguing this, arguing that, or gesturing, like moving around, or this, that, or the other. How would you is it just guys, you just need to take it and just move on? That's sort of it.
It's almost kind of like a culture change a little bit, I think. And obviously it has to come from across the board. I mean, you've seen it at club level, we see it at junior level. It's, I think, just a kind of a general culture in the sport, I think, would be really good. And from our racquetball, to shine it in a little bit, that's something that a lot of people have really enjoyed with racquetball, is that actually because we don't really play strokes unless it's an incredibly blatant one, there's no real fishing. Refereeing and playing is far more relaxed, because actually there's virtually none of this arguing that we see in squash. So I think it has to be a bit of a culture change across the sport.
There's two ideas I've seen. One I literally saw yesterday, where they said, it was on Reddit, with obviously it's all anonymous, but somebody advised that they should be stricter with the conduct warning, conduct stroke. But what they should do is, if you get a conduct warning, you lose a point. And a conduct stroke, not only does your opponent gain a point, but you lose a point as well. To try and get them to be like, if it's 8-all, say, it's like 9-7's a lot different to 9-8.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then the other idea was Timmy Brownell said that the player should ask for what they want, and the referee. So instead of having 3 decisions, 3 potential outcomes, if you ask for a stroke, it's either a stroke or nothing. If you ask for a let, it's either a let or nothing.
That's so tough on the spur of the moment, though, because like the amount. I kind of get it. I quite like it, but like you kind of go, let's. It's kind of juggling whether you're willing to take that chance or not. But yeah, I quite like that. It's a good idea. But yeah, I certainly think, like, for me, I think generally the game's setup is correct. But yeah, the refereeing side, it comes up every tournament, doesn't it? Every PSA, team match, what have you. There's always something, and I think like that make a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's I think the Australian and the New Zealand Open went pretty seamlessly, but it's popped up that I'm not sure. Did you see the last point of making the Zachariah?
Yeah, the slip,
and the slip, and other things have been popping up about that. As some people going, "Oh, the ref should have stopped it." Other people are saying, "Well, Zachariah didn't ask, so you don't ask, you don't get." I mean, he was going the wrong way, wasn't he? So he might not have seen with the ball landed and just gone, "I've gone the wrong way. That's it. End of story."
I would have been flailing my arms around like a lunatic asking for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just, Joel's such. I grew up with Joel, and he's such a bloody heavy sweater. You'd have to get a full size towel and wrap it round him. That's the only way you'd combat that. And then the final question, and we've got a sort of as a preview in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to be chatting with James Zegg about the goats of squash. Going to go through the who list the names. Who would you have as your men's goat and female goat of squash before I let you go?
Okay, so men's goat. I mean, yeah, obviously there's the kind of the historical kind of achievements kind of thing, but I'd still say for the way he played the game, it's Rami. Just for his, again, he was nicknamed the artist, but like you even watch back some of the clips of him playing on one leg and stuff like that, and it was just a different game. Notable sort of addition would be someone like Amir Shabana as well. Just again because of the way that he kind of went about his gameplay and stuff. It was just incredible. Obviously there are those that have won more titles and stuff like that, but for me, like, those would be the ones. Women's, you got to look at Shabini, like Noor Shabini, like, just she has been so incredible for so long, with such a wide range of people kind of throwing themselves against her, to still be at her level and to have achieved what she's achieved and to play the way she plays. It's just incredible to see. So I'd say her, probably.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I say it'll be a couple of weeks before that's out,
yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see what you make of it in comparison to the names you've just thrown out. They do feature someone in the list. They're going to be, you just happen to name, what was it? Rami won 3 world titles, Shabana won 4, and Shabini won 8. So they're going to feature somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, that's it, definitely.
But no, thank you very, very much for your time.
That's
and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was great to be on. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Right,
bye.
Cheers. Thanks.
And that was Mike, 8-time national champion, gunning for Tim's record of 10 as a coach and someone right at the centre of growing racket sports in the UK. What stood out for me was, really the journey that he went through from that grind of professional sport, transitioning into coaching, and now he's helping shape the future of racquetball. There's a lot in there about his resilience, his adaptability, and his understanding of how to get sport growing across the UK, and how he's able to help when he can. And his point around the community, whether it's sharing rackets, bringing new players in, or building something. It's those attributes that really help keep the sport moving forward. If you enjoy this episode, please make sure you follow and subscribe. Share it with someone who you think would enjoy it as well, whether they love squash, racquetball, or just sport in general. And as always, we've got more conversations coming up. Next week, I speak to Patty Camps, a paddle venture capitalist who is helping grow the sport, and really just showing what involvement and drive really is, to keep that momentum going for paddle. And before then, a big thank you to our sponsors, ACC Leisure, helping secure the future of leisure across the UK, and to Oliver, UK racket pioneers since 1938. Until next week, when I speak to Patty, take care.